This week, you'll be writing the introduction section for the laboratory you completed. Now, if we take a look back, we will remember that the introduction to a lab report should give a brief description of why you did the experiment, as well as any major techniques or concepts needed to complete the experiment. This section is where you should include the mechanism or structure of the organic compounds involved. Also included in this section should be a table of reagents. Check out the integrated writing guide for examples of how those should look. The first question to ask yourself when writing an introduction: what was the purpose of this experiment? Was the purpose to purify a compound, to synthesize a compound, to characterize a compound, or to study a phenomenon? Asking these questions can help point you in the right direction to start your introduction. However, sometimes there may not be one specific answer. As you progress to more difficult laboratory procedures and courses, the purpose may be mixtures of the answers to all these questions. Once you've figured out the purpose of the experiment, you need to ask yourself what techniques or concepts are needed to complete this experiment. Did you use recrystallization or column chromatography to purify a compound? If so, explain these techniques in the introduction. Was a product synthesized using a specific organic reaction? Then explain how that reaction works and what its uses are in industry. Was a compound characterized using instrumentation like IR, NMR, GC, UV vis, or maybe you simply took a melting point? If so, then explain how information is obtained from these methods and what you can tell about the outcome of the experiment. Now don't worry, you aren't expected to know everything about all of these ideas. This is why it's important to search the literature and internet for sources to help you better explain these concepts. Let's talk about references for a second. If you use any ideas or work that are not your own, you should reference the source. For reports in this class, you should be following the ACS Style Guide for citations. Chapter 14 covers everything you need to know about citations, and you can download the entire ACS Style Guide from the ACS website. There's also a link to Chapter 14 on the Canvas page for your section. When citing a source in text, we'll be using the first convention mentioned in the Style Guide: superscript numbers. An example of an in-text citation should look like this. It's important to remember that your references should be arranged numerically in the order they appear in the text. That is to say, the first source you cite should be 1, the second 2, and so on. We'd like to see you use at least 2 credible sources other than your laboratory manual. Where can you find these credible sources? That's a good question. Websites like ChemWiki, developed by UC Davis, and Master Organic Chemistry are great websites to use as an initial resource. These websites typically have sections at the end of the page that shows where the information was retrieved, or they show links to external websites with more information. Other websites that end in .edu or .gov are potentially reliable, as well as articles from scientific journals and your course textbook.